What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video. And in today's video, we are going to be shining the spotlight firmly on the SS version of Honoka and taking her and running her through her paces in PvE to give you guys an idea of what you can expect the performance of this character to be when she is fully awakened. But before we get into all of that and more, if you guys enjoy daily King of Fighters Allstar content such as this, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Now, starting off here with the typing and the leadership ability, the main thing of note here is going to be the typing as a yellow defense, because she's basically an attack type disguised as a defense type, meaning she's going to be able to deal ridiculous damage for a character of her ilk and still be able to take a hit. Leadership ability wise, she leaves a lot to be desired. But moving over to the cores, on her power gain, she is going to get a 30% power charge rate increase and increases her damage by 18% upon landing a critical hit. And then she is also going to have various cores here that are just going to be increasing her overall damage and attack, which is definitely something that you are going to notice is a trend with this character. Beyond that, she has a 3.2% critical rate increase, and then on her exclusive core, she increases active skill damage dealt to burned enemies by 90%, with a 20% chance to deal additional damage equal to 700% of attack upon landing an attack, guard included, and then she increases attack by 5% and penetration by 300 for 5 seconds for each attack. This stacks up to 5 and gains 20% power when her combo count is 10 or above. And then of course she has the exclusive core for Dead or Alive fighters. So overall, this character isn't trying to do anything fancy. As you can see, she's really just trying to land critical hits and do a lot of damage, and she does an extremely good job at doing so. Moving over to the skills, the first thing of note is of course going to be as an SS character. This character is going to have an extra long awakening rotation, something that is specifically going to be useful to people that enjoy using their awakening rotations and their awakening spam with shields down in Guild Raid, and you'll love to see it. Moving on to the skills themselves, the S1 is going to have super armor as well as infernal flame, and it is going to be an interrupt. This is going to be one of her best skills in general, as this is going to be able to basically nuke most things off the face of the earth in PvAI, and that interrupt ability is very important. On the S2, this is going to have hyper armor as well as a 70% chance to reset the cooldown when using it, and it can be used when attacked, so it is also an interrupt. So leading off the kit here, we have two interrupt skills that are both very good, and that 70% chance to reset the cooldown is also very important, especially since it has her hyper armor. And then she is also going to have the S3 here, which increases her attack by 35% and deals burn damage equal to 135% of attack to all enemies upon landing an attack on a burn target, as well as a 3-second stun. This is particularly good against mobbing, and another big reason why this character is going to be amazing in mobs. We'll talk about that more when we get to that section of this review, but that is also going to make her really good for things such as time attack, of course, being that she can pretty much wipe the board if she just hits one enemy with burn. But that's going to be the skills. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to take a look at a few other things here. First thing's going to be the 3PG card does have an effect that increases critical rate by 5% and her critical damage by 20% for 10 seconds. This is really important for her because this character really likes crits, and if you guys are interested or wondering why your Honoka may not be doing as much damage as mine or others, it's probably because you may not have this set. She really wants this set, and this is really a big caveat for her, because this character, while she is capable of doing ridiculous amounts of damage, you're definitely going to want this card, because if you don't have this set, she is going to lose a lot of her damage, so keep that in mind. Now, when we move over here to the stones, my recommendation for you guys is just to go straight attack across the board, regardless of the fact that she is a defense type, because again, she is a attack type hiding as a defense type in my opinion. So definitely go with these. This is your best option, and don't really consider the star stone there. I literally just put that on there last night, so any of the footage you're about to see is not going to have that in effect. But let's go ahead and move over to the skills and take a bigger look at those. Moving over to the skills, one of the nice things about this character is she does have double interrupt, which you definitely will notice when you're using her, but when it comes to the S1, SS Honoka is going to have this as a OTG as well as a full screen with interrupt, burn, super armor, as well as it just being ridiculously fast. Now do keep in mind with this skill though, there's a couple of little idiosyncrasies that you may not notice right off the bat. The biggest thing that you want to take note of is the fact that this skill does a total of 5 hits. However, if you're at long range, you're only going to be able to connect with 2 of those. So that's really important if you are trying to min-max your overall damage output in things such as Guild Raid, but definitely something to keep in mind. However, overall, this is a very flexible skill, being an interrupt and an off the ground, so really good stuff overall. Moving on now to the S2. The S2 is actually very interesting as it's going to have full screen distance as well as off the ground, hyper armor, a skill reset, and interrupt, as well as being decently fast for what it's trying to accomplish. However, do keep in mind it is still a little bit on the slower side, so if you're trying to just toss this out there in things such as PVAI, you may end up taking a hit or two, or end up getting caught, or even just getting dodged in general, so keep that in mind. Now the S3 is definitely going to be Honoka's slowest skill, but it also boasts quite a few effects that are going to be very beneficial to you, as it is going to be an off the ground with a 35% attack increase, burn, and stun, as well as being technically full screen. However, I wouldn't really be throwing it out there in that way because it is very easy to telegraph and very slow. So if you do try to use it at full screen distance, it's likely to get you into trouble. I would just consider it at most a mid-range skill, if anything, but overall still very good. The 3PG finisher is about average on length for animation at 7 seconds, but it can interrupt Nightmare Geese's ground aura, as well as being able to connect with opponents behind Honoka, which is particularly good against mobs in time attack. And finally, the core finisher is going to have roughly a 5-second long animation, so nothing too special there. So let's go ahead now and take a look at her in action in PvE and see how she performs. Now, as always, taking a look at general mobs and bosses first here, SS Honoka, just like her Angel of Paradise counterpart, is going to be a godsend when it comes to general mobs and bosses. Overall, this character has a couple of things going for her that are going to make her stand out. Really, the biggest thing is going to be the fact that her overall damage output for a defensive type is just absolutely ridiculous. Her XY axis is really strong, and she has double interrupt, so most any mob is going to have a rough time getting past her. And then when it comes to general bosses, really with her being an SS character, the biggest thing to note here is that extra long awakening rotation. Couple that with her overall nuke ability, and this character is pretty much going to wipe the floor with most any general boss with ease. Now, moving on and taking a look at PVAI here, there's really not a whole lot of negatives you can really levy towards SS Honoka here. She's actually going to be, in my opinion, extremely important for these types of modes, specifically in defensive weeks of League, where you're going to lack a lot of really high damage output options there. So she's basically going to be a staple for those types of weeks in League, but overall this character is just going to be a top tier pick in general, especially in things such as Absolute War, and she can take a hit, which is really nice. Moving on now to Immortals. Immortals is really where SS Honoka begins to shine, but there are some key downsides that we'll want to take note of. So first and foremost, what you're going to notice about this clip, and I have been able to replicate this type of run against Immortal Vulcan with this team as well, so this isn't just relegated to Immortal Moth, but SS Honoka does not have any sort of leadership ability on this team benefiting her whatsoever, so she's really just in there doing raw damage, and that's what makes her so impressive, especially as a defensive type unit. Not only is she able to take hits in Immortals, which is really important considering the fact that over time these Immortals are going to do a lot of damage to these characters, and typically we'll have to lean on things such as HP recovery stones or things of that nature in order to get some of our attack types through these types of runs. With SS Honoka, you really don't have to worry about it. This is partially due to the fact that she is an SS fighter, so she is going to have that extra long awakening rotation, which is definitely going to help her when it comes to being able to charge up her finishers. But overall, that is part of the reason why she doesn't necessarily rely on a leader that is boosting her overall power gain. She would enjoy it and it would only help her more, but really you do not need it, as you can see in this clip. But overall, I have very few negative things to say about her here, but it is worth noting that she is a defensive type, which can be a double-edged sword. That is going to mean that she can't slot in with some of the better overall leaders for this type of mode, particularly a character such as Nightmare Geese. However, she will slot in with some other characters that you're still going to like to see here, such as your SS Kios of the world and your Ignises and so on and so forth. So this character in general, while she isn't tailor-made and perfect for this type of mode, I think that overall, thanks to the fact that she just does ridiculous damage, she can take hits, and she has that extra long awakening rotation, you could do far worse. And honestly, I have yet to find a Immortal that I have run up against where she isn't just going to be a top flight pick overall. So great stuff. Now, undoubtedly, you guys have seen a ton of different YouTubers doing some pretty amazing things in Guild Raid thanks to SS Honoka, and there's a lot of key reasons why, which we'll try to outline here, but I want to go through some different difficulties in Guild Raid and talk about her performance. So, as you guys probably have seen here on the channel, I was able to get over 900 million damage on hard mode against Omega Rugal. However, since then, I've also been able to break 1 billion damage, and that was something that I was considering posting for you guys. I might end up doing that, but this character can do ridiculous amounts of damage, and needless to say, she can one key hard mode against Omega Rugal easily. However, when we take a look at this character in the realm of Lunatic, this character is also going to be able to shine when shields are down. Really, this is thanks to the fact that she does ridiculous amounts of damage, so when the shield is down and you use her awakening spam with that extra long awakening rotation, you're basically going to get yourself a lesser version of Kyo when it comes to shield down scenarios, where her damage is going to be very impressive, but she isn't necessarily going to outpace him whatsoever. He is still the king, I hate to tell you guys, but she still does an amazing job. And even though, despite the fact that she is missing out on Starlight damage here, she's able to make up for it by being a character that can take his nuke damage and still be able to survive several rounds of it. So overall, this character, in my opinion, is a wonderful selection for this type of mode. I really do think that if you guys are looking for a step down character to some of the top DPSs in the games in Guild Raid, you would be hard pressed to find a better option, but there are going to be some downsides to her here. Of course, in Lunatic, she doesn't have Starlight like her Angel of Paradise counterpart, which does harm her just a little bit. However, really, if you're going to be using her here, you're typically going to be using her as a secondary DPS option, so keep that in mind. But overall, you could do far, far worse, and I think she is a top flight character for this type of mode. Now, when we get into Guild Raid Nightmare Geese, there's a couple of reasons why she would be very good, and they largely are going to be similar to what we just spoke of. When it comes to Guild Raid Nightmare Geese, she does have the ability to interrupt his ground aura, so that is something that is definitely important. You love to see that, and that is something that the Angel of Paradise version of this character does not have, so that is something that is very interesting to note, and that is something that a lot of these Angel of Paradise characters versus their SS counterparts are going to have working against them, so something to keep in mind. But overall, this is a character that you're again going to want to use as a secondary DPS option. However, being the fact that she can interrupt that ground aura, she is going to have a little bit of extra versatility here, and it just adds to the reasons why you would want to use her against this type of mode. But overall, if again you are a person who missed out on some of these other limited banner characters, this is a really nice option for you, and I really do think that if you need a lot of help on damage on this type of mode, maybe you have the necessary characters for the dots already, such as your Boss Syndrome Original Zero or your Boss Syndrome Ignis, and you just need an overall damage nuke to help you through whenever the shields are down, which is typically going to be the strategy most people employ just for time reasons, so that way they can get through this as quick as possible, or for players out there who may just need to do it in order to survive and get through this, then this character is going to be a wonderful addition to your team, and I think overall in Guild Raid this character is tier 1. So in summary, SS Honoka is the best free-to-play character we have ever seen in the King of Fighters All-Star, and a wonderful step-down option to people who have missed out on a lot of BS and SS characters. Well, there you have it, you guys, the SS Honoka Spotlight. Now, the inevitable question that I'm going to get asked a million times in the comment section is, which of these versions of Honoka do I prefer? And I'm going to answer that with a resounding, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, both of these characters do enough to differentiate themselves kit-wise to where it makes sense to go for both of them. Now, obviously, this being a free-to-play unit, technically being that she is locked behind that goofy memory carnival, this is going to be a character that most people will at least have a chance to get to a fair awakening level, and I think that if you're somebody who is sitting on a bunch of tokens or tickets, even now with that Roulette, that will help as well with this. But do everything that you can to build this character up as high as humanly possible, because she is a wonderful step down option to some of the top DPSs in the game, and you can build her up foreseeably for free. So if you can make that happen, do so, because she is awesome in most any PvE mode. But that is going to be today's video, you guys. I hope you all found it informative. If you did, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. I will be back in tomorrow's video with the Saturday Chat and Chill, but until then, as always, you guys take care of yourselves. Peace.
Continue.